Good morning, everyone. On behalf of ASQ South Asia, I'm your host, Anindya Sarangi, head of ASQ South Asia region. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to an interesting webinar kickstarting the month of quality. I wish all our audience good health and safety in these times. As some of you who are already familiar with our format, this is our monthly webinar series. We invite eminent guests from the industry and request them to share their experiences and leave some of the thoughts for us as takeaways. Before I introduce our guest, a quick overview of ASQ and few housekeeping tips for those who are new to our webinar platform. ASQ is the oldest professional body in quality, founded way back in 1945. We are present in 140 countries through our members, communities, and direct offices like one in New Delhi, India. ASQ has the legacy and the fortune where leading quality gurus and thought leaders have led ASQ and provided a global quality thought leadership. ASQ South Asia, we are engaged with over 350 odd corporate houses, 50 leading education institutions, building capabilities through our intense training methodologies, and also advisory services. Our other offerings include membership, certification, research papers, and also engage our customers through various seminars, conferences, award programs, and knowledge sharing platforms. One of our sought-after award programs is the ASQ South Asia Team Excellence Award competition, where the winner of the best quality project goes to participate directly at the International Team Excellence Award in USA, which has been happening for the last 30 years. ASQ South Asia welcomes every one of you, from individual to corporate houses, to come along with us to engage and celebrate the month of November as the month of quality, celebrated across the world. They say the theme for the quality month is reimagining quality. I shall be sharing more information on the various initiatives planned by ASQ South Asia, which includes guest lectures, quality contests, conferences, etc., and many more, so stay tuned. We'll talk about this just after this session. Let's now dive straight into our webinar series. Like today's, all our past webinar series are available on our South Asia YouTube channel. Just type ASQ South Asia on YouTube channel, you should be able to get onto our page. From talking about quality professionals to supply chain to emotional balance, we are covering every aspect of quality that touches human life. The next in the series will be use of data for improving business performance in uncertain times by Dr. Ronald Snee. And please note the change in timing and date, as this will be on a Saturday evening of November 28th at 6 p.m. He will be joining us live from USA. Before I introduce our guest today, a quick housekeeping note. All attendees will be in mute throughout the program. However, you are encouraged to use the question answer box or the chat box to ask or drop in your questions during or after the session. We shall pick up all the questions either at the end or as the speaker may feel like in between. Any further thoughts, comments, feedback, or questions, you can write into us at asqindia@asq.org. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce our speaker for today, Ms. Kavita Singh, Chief Human Resource Officer of Hindustan Zinc Limited. Hindustan Zinc Limited, or HZL as it's known as, is the largest and is India's largest, and world's second largest zinc and lead mine. A quick introduction of Kavita. She has over 18 years of rich industry experience of both service and manufacturing sector. She is instrumental in creating positive employee experience, transparency, and inclusion that is essential for driving growth and development. Prior to joining Hindustan Zinc, she has worked with Mashreq Group, ICICI Prudential, Tata AIG, among others. Just to build a perspective here, HZL employs around 6,800 employees. Kavita, you can always correct me with the numbers here. That's by no means a small number of people to handle. I'm glad I'm on the other side. And then managing a diverse set of minds, and hence, who better than you, Kavita, I could think, for today's topic on capability development, a key to organizational success. Before I hand over to you today's session, a successful capability development program requires conviction, commitment, and confidence, as the mantra I see in Kavita. Kavita, over to you. Let me just share give you the right so that you can take it forward from here itself.
Thanks a lot, Anindya, and a very good morning to all of you. I will share my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes, please.
Okay. Now I cannot see the questions, but I would request you to, yeah, thank you, Vipin. I would request you to keep on writing your comments or asking your questions through the chat box or the Q&A box, which is what is active right now. So before we begin, and we talk about today's topic, just a little bit of an introduction about myself. Thank you, Anindya, for giving the baton to me. And I'm Kavita. I have worked for the past 18 years across India and other subcontinents. I have worked for the longest in Maersk, AP Moller Maersk. And prior to that, I was working with the financial and services sector. So I worked with the Tata Group, the Tata AIG Group, and ICICI Prudential. For the past 2 years, have been with Hindustan Zinc, and yes, it's a large workforce in India. We have close to 4,300 employees now, both executives and non-executives, including the workmen. And then we have a huge contract workforce, which runs over 20,000 plus. So yeah, so we have widespread operations across Rajasthan as a part of HZL, and a little bit in Uttarakhand. So that's how the organization is. However, coming to today's topic, of course, I will draw out on my experiences from the past organizations that I've worked with, whether it is financial services, whether it is Maersk, which was both into heavy assets and services, and in the current organization, which is a lot about B2B manufacturing, industrial kind of setups. The views are my own, so I do not assign these views to the organization, or if anything that comes across is my personal view. So if you have any comments or remarks or questions, then you can absolutely share them with me, and I will try my best to have a dialogue on that. So let's start. You spoke about the 3 C's, Anindya. I would add 3 more during my session, which largely relates to competence and talent. So we'll do that. I want to talk to you guys about capability development today, and I don't want to cover it in like a typical session where we are talking about how do organizations see talent, how do they develop them. I want to look at a perspective where we are able to look at capability development from 3 lenses. One is the organizational lens, the second is the leader's lens, and the third one, which is the most important, is the self lens. And how does one sail through? So let's start. I would use this format of presentation because there will be times when I would want to write on the screen. So Anindya, just let me know that the screen is visible and it's clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, Kavita.
Okay. So I'll look for your comments. So what's wrong with this picture? Any comments?
People can type in their chat box or question answer box, whichever, both are open today.
Yes. And if you see any questions, comments, or I can't see them, but Anindya, if you can read them. You're on mute.
I'm on mute, so yes, I have first comment coming in. So there is no X or Y axis. And then there is the graph is far above reach, growth up to some extent, special cause. We are
great ways. Actually, there are some which I never personally thought of when I was making this. So yeah, and that also talks about that we have a very data oriented and analytical group that is listening to us. But
inconsistent performance, inconsistent performance, something away, unidirectional trend.
Okay, and I will then take you to the next picture. So basically, it is the perspective that matters and how we look at things and situations. So yeah, of course, it was on a graph, and it is about the life of the turkey and where it lands up. And I think it's a great context today, because if we look at, and I was Sun also rises, so it says how did you go bankrupt, and it so so it's you know, today's context is very,
for a moment. Let me stop you for a moment before you come back. I've got some few interesting comments which are coming up, and I think it will just humor the entire, the chat. There are people saying,
very interactive. Yes.
The chicken is not able to reach the line, and then performance is going back where it started, and then of course the last comment as I see it is chicken got roasted. So.
So I am assuming that a lot of them are thinking of performance management while they are talking and looking at these slides. I definitely relate to that. However, I also want to put the current context and the importance of us keeping in touch with the context, and like individuals, organizations have to be cognizant of what's going around and how they catch up or how they quickly adapt. Absolutely. So these things also happen to the business. We talk about capabilities, and capabilities, as I may say, I have drawn these circles just because I wanted to share with you my thoughts that there are three lenses. Like we spoke about, the organizational, the self, and the leaders. But here it's more about, what is the business need, which is this one. What are you individually, passionate about? So what's your passion area? Where does that lie? What motivates you? What gets you out of the bed? What makes you happy? And on the other side, what makes you unhappy? What really derails you? What de-energizes you? And the third part is, what are your strengths? Right? So what activities, tasks bring out the best in you? And I think that the all of us relate to the three dimensions. We all work in either our own ventures or in organizations employed by others, whether it's entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship. You look at the business needs or the context. You look at the passion that one carries and the strength that one brings, and the ideal is somewhere here. And the best operating model, the best profitable, or the most profitable, or the best delivering, most engaged organizations have a large part of people falling into this ideal zone. Because if you're passionate about something and it is also your strength, but if it's not a business need, then it will not make sense. The organization will not invest or value that passion and competence. The second part is, if it's your strength and it's a business need, but you're not passionate about it, it won't drag you out of the bed every day. It won't energize you. It won't make you give the discretionary effort that one gives when one is happy. And of course, if you're passionate about something and there is a business need, but it doesn't bring out the best in you, then it may not be an optimal performance level. So the best is when we are able to look at the center zone, and that's what I wanted to set the context with, that capabilities or capability development is very individualistic to the organization, to the leader who's building the team or setting a vision, and lastly to the individual who's a part of the team or who's a part of the organization or is the leader. Because beyond the leadership aspect, there is also a personal side that one needs to look into. We will talk about all three of them today. Anindya, I will really bank on you to ask me questions, because I can't see that window. So if
Okay.
there are any questions coming in, please do pop them up so that I can answer them with the
We
discussion.
can use the question answer box. That will become easier for everyone to look into, and for us as well to quickly look in, rather than using the chat box. I'll encourage, I'll turn off the chat box. We'll just keep the question answer box for picking any question in between. As the session proceeds, I'll pick up the question in between.
Sure. Thank you, Anindya. So we will talk about, what are the things that organizations do or have been doing in terms of business needs specific to talent or capability building. Then we will talk about, the strengths and the passion aspect. What are the dimensions that we can look at so that we can kind of build on some of the historical research or the ways that and means that people have used to enhance their strengths and capability. From a leadership perspective, I'm assuming that a lot of you or most of you have many years of experience and have led teams, have moved from an individual contributor to a leader or a team leader or a project leader kind of a role. So it's very important for us to also understand why does learning stop. And many times we talk about that we have a mindset of learning, we know what is right, but we still are not able to exercise what's right. So it's very important for us to not forget the context and see there is always an exploring and open mindset kind of a perspective. And then of course when I look at colleagues on a day-to-day basis, there is also an exploitative mindset, and some of the comments that we see, in terms of the mindset we have, that the organizations exist where they exploit the resources, and I'm not using the word exploit in a negative way. I'm using it that it is consumed for a benefit to create value, and in return the resource definitely gets something in return. So these are there. However, there is a lot of disruption. There's a lot of specifically in today's context, if I look at the environmental changes, the health scare, or the disruptive aspect of the pandemic, which causes the market and the economic factors to operate very differently. So how do we leverage technology? And I think more than me, you guys are aware that how technology has come to the rescue, and how organizations that were prepared actually could leverage and hit a six on this opportunity. So luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So the ones who were prepared got lucky, and we actually say that it actually helps if we do the BCP, and many of you coming from the background that you do would be thinking about that. So what is the need for us to look at capability development? Why, how, what? We'll talk about these questions. And if I look at from a leadership or a visionary or a CEO perspective, if I will keep quoting the research or the data that I have pulled out in terms of my numbers that I'm talking about. I will, KPMG did a global CEO outlook survey 2 years back, and they found out that most of the leaders around the world were uncertain or worried about a few things. One is the biggest factor was the loyalty of their customers, the stickiness of their customers. The second one was, the lack of time they have to understand the disruptive forces. And I will quote one of my ex-CEOs. He said that although I'm running a shipping logistics international trade company, the only company that keeps me awake is a technology firm, because today if you look at the largest hotel chain does not own assets. The largest transportation company does not own assets, cars, and it's technology that is running. So all the companies first have to be technology companies and then into the business that they are doing. So lack of time to understand the disruptive forces that operate in our respective sectors. The relevance of our products, whatever products or services that we have, what is the relevance and what is the window of that relevance? And now, specifically during the pandemic, you see that the window of relevance of these products has really, really shrunk. Keeping up with the new technology, and a large part, actually almost 65% of the CEOs were worried about new entrants taking business away from them. And I think that's also another thing that we are seeing. And that has a lot of significance, because the worries are actually real. If you look at how these large companies have been disrupted, the average tenure of companies, basis Standard & Poor top 500 rated companies, if we were to look at data in 1960s, the mid 60s, the average tenure was around 30 to 35 years. If we look at the average tenure of companies around the 90s, the early 90s, it was around 20 years. And if we look at now, and maybe in 5 years from now, it will be less than 15 years. So that's the pressure and the worry that each of the leaders are carrying with them. And you see that disruption across industries, whether it is media, whether it is financial services, whether it's transportation, international trade, non-profit organizations, profitable organizations, healthcare, education is going through a huge disruption and change, industrial as well. So, all of us had a view that, mining would typically be like the early movies we saw of Amitabh Bachchan, where, in the coal mines you go and you see yourself. But today, if you go and see, the first time when I actually went underground and saw the mine, I thought this was like a resort. It is so technologically advanced and fully connected through Wi-Fi. There are roads, there are 65, 75, 80 tonner trucks flying, at 500 meters below Earth. So, the reach has significantly improved, and technology has definitely enabled this. So if you look at organizations, the large organizations which had big market caps, they are more technically advanced, they are less manual or labor intensive. The number of employees is the smallest in the largest market cap organizations. So, Nestle would be big, but in terms of the number of employees employed, but an Amazon or a Facebook would be multiple times of the market cap, but have a much lesser number of people deployed. So technology is changing the way businesses are run, and people are running the businesses, of course. So look at opportunities, resources, organization, ourselves, and see that, I would say any organization, if one has to think of, would look at its business strategy and say, if I have to win in the marketplace and I have to bring this strategy to life, what are the capabilities that I need in the organization to actually thrive and bring myself to the top quartile results? and from the capabilities, it's a direct translation into the kind of talent or resources that is available. So the hardware that we see is easily available or procurable, but in terms of the capabilities of the people who will operate on these hardware, the soft side or the soft wiring of the organization is something that one really constantly needs to invest in, because I don't think we'll ever be in a situation where we are not dependent on the consumer or the operator. So the ratios may vary depending on how technically advanced we are, but it is very key that the hardware and the software work together in semblance. So very simple way of showing that is that you look at your and the talent that you need, and I think move into a direction where there is a semblance from the strategy to the capabilities to the talent. Now, in organizations, how do we identify capabilities? It is very, very important to have a constant dialogue between the strategy and the capabilities needed to win. So if you are working on a strategy to win in the marketplace, look at commercial expansion, or look at technically advancing or launching new products, what are the capabilities that you will need to win that strategy in the marketplace? And what are the capabilities needed through talent, and what is the organization that you need to design and deliver that? So I've put a simple core model that if your strategy and capabilities constantly keep dialoguing, then you will be very clear about what are the talent needs of the organization, what is the structure in which the talent should be placed or the capabilities should be placed, and then of course you have a mechanism or a machinery around managing that. So right from selecting, performance managing, developing, and paying in the right. So compensation I write specifically because in today's day and age, retention is a big issue. A mind share where you're working remotely, mind share and retention is a big issue. And we historically typically heard about buy, build, and borrow, but I also feel it's time to look at newer trends and add, boost, bind, and bounce to that. So it's very important that we look at. And I've elaborated that because it's more about learning. So how do we take the next step in terms of keeping our people and keeping the capabilities within the organization? So that was something that I wanted to talk about. I'll take a pause if there are any questions specifically on that.
Yeah, I have a question, Kavita, though I would welcome the audience to also punch in their question in the Q&A box itself. You talked about retention, and I think that's another huge topic to really talk about. But I think in today's context, if you look at the new generation, you're still having retaining these young generation becomes a really tough task, specifically because as you very rightly said, the organization lifespan may be reducing over the period of time over 15 years. So we do not have a honeymoon period. We need people who can really get onto the job and start delivering. And probably the way we need to look at on a long-term basis, maybe the retention is something that, okay, we know that journey we will be getting in. How do we manage that journey or something like that? I'm just loud thinking that, it's a very sensitive topic that you really touched upon, the retention part. And what are your thoughts? You think there is a long-term retention, and really there's a lot of effort that goes into retention would still make a
yes, absolutely, Anindya. And in fact, even in my industry that I currently am a part of, we always thought the brick and mortar operates differently. The services, technical, financial services, they operate differently. IT industry operates differently. The fundamental or the bedrock is that you do need the best to stay with you, no matter which industry. So there are limitations. So the current context has caused limitations in terms of how the government machinery is able to upkeep with the increasing demand and the continuous need to operate and deliver profit constantly. So that consistency of performance comes at a very high cost, and a big part of that is the people that operate it. So and I'm seeing that across industries, of course, IT, financial services are seeing a different kind of expansion with the opportunities that the current situation provides them. But the traditional industry, the manufacturing industrial, are going through their own challenges, and the need to retain. The government is expanding, so the government is of course under pressure to show that the economy will continue to grow and is growing, and hence they are opening up a lot of sectors. They are privatizing a lot of operations that the government erstwhile ran, and with that there's a are also open to go and because they do pay well today. So that boundary of the private and the government, or the public-private partnership, is creating a huge opportunity for talent to move around. And with that mobility comes the what's your employee value proposition to retain them? How do you keep people? How do you train them? I read a quote that the CFO said, why are we spending so much on training and building the capability of these people? What if they leave? And the CEO or the HR head says, yes, what if we don't train them and they stay? So it's very important that we look at. However, let's come back to the question. So we were talking about what's business critical for the strategy. What are the critical competencies or capabilities that we need, and how do we define that? So if you look at, in terms of say a business, if you look at business impact, and if you look at the availability, or I would say scarcity of competence, so if you look at that, and then if I were to do a 3 by 3, then you will have to see that what is the business impact of each role or each competence, and what is the scarcity or abundance that I see, and how do I then plot my strategy to retain, develop, compensate, reward people, so that I'm able to win in the marketplace. So this is very important for us, both from an organizational perspective and leadership perspective. So what are the critical roles for you? Why are they critical? And all roles cannot be critical. So sometimes it's also very important to know, if you have certain roles, these are the roles where I will be world class and have the best talent, and the rest of the places, good is good enough. So it's important to also have that demarcation, that where do I need to have a star, and where can a value performer be good enough? So that segregation and understanding is also very important. And from an individual perspective, if you sit here, then you command a value. If you sit here, then you are not a scarcity. So how does one navigate careers, or look at moving from this to this, or rather this to this, is what
Right.
I would say.
What's the trade-off as an organization? For an organization, where do we do the trade-off, and with whom, what level we do the trade-off?
And what is also important, that for every organization, it is very important, depending on the business and the cyclicality of their business, to look at what these business impactful critical roles, they need to have a time-bound evaluation mechanism. So what's critical today may not be critical like 3 years down the line, or that timeline is shrinking with a lot of these changes. So depending on your industry, you may want to define, today these 5 roles are critical for me, the most business impactful role. But over the 3 years, if I'm able to build this capability, then it can actually be will not be my Achilles heel, and I will be able to focus on moving up. So moving some of these roles on the higher aspect of business criticality. So it depends on what are the different roles. And then of course let me just so if I were to or maybe just look at if I were to look at historically we have looked at the the 9 box to look at how we evaluate competence, capability. A large part of it is performance. So performance is the key. I mean, no potential can exist for long if it doesn't translate into performance. So we've been historically looking at the performance potential grid, but this is also a very historic or archaic concept now. So if you look at, people are moving away from performance appraisals. They are becoming very project outcome driven. So there is a quicker assessment, there is a quicker feedback, relevant instant feedback, and then you move on. You don't carry impressions for a longer term of a year. And a lot of companies have now then replaced this potential with values, with behavior, because these are things that actually impact the performance directly. How collaboration, how synergy, how team bonding are different things that bring the team together, and it creates a winning organization culture. So these are things that one has to keep evolving with. And then like I said, is all kinds of talent a critical talent? No, it's not. There are some which will be critical for the business, there are some which will be optimal, and there are some you will have the high professionals and the high potentials that you have. And then you'll have to see, if I had my $100, where would I invest those $100, and where would I get the maximum impact of those investments. So matching talent to your business need is extremely critical. So these were some things, and I wanted to highlight that if we were to look at the the hardwiring of the organization and the softer behavioral side would have an overlap, and this is where I would say your capability building would basically lie. So it's very important to look at the culture, look at the processes, look at the people, or the critical people, if you would say, and what is the formal organization you create around this. So the hardwire in terms of process, organization structure, systems is one part that draws out, and the softer part of the culture, behavioral, people, attitude, critical roles, and the people who occupy those critical roles. These are things that one has to put in the continuum, and it is very important that the two intersect at a point where you are able to win and design for yourself. So that was one aspect. I'll take a pause if there are any specific questions or comments.
So there are two questions. So one is on, as a capability builder across departments and service industry, is it difficult to plan capability building exercise due to business pressure? Segmentize efforts of development do not synchronize interests and talent matching. There is always the excuse of unavailability of manpower to talent building exercise. How do you address that, please?
Yeah, I think this is a very I hear this every now and then. If we are not performing, it must be an equipment availability or manpower, or if manpower and equipment both were available, then maybe the skills were not at the right level. So you always have something that goes by. But it's very important to plan out for this aspect to stay relevant. If it's a short-term game, you can actually win by having a quick or a short sight on only the output. But if we have to win in the long term and stay consistent, then it is very important that we continue to invest in our people. and take time. So even if it means that you take I'll share a recent example. I was talking to a colleague who moved from a very large multinational bank and started his own NBFC, funding setup in Rajasthan. And he said that when he started, it was very difficult for him to attract resources. But one of the biggest thing that was helpful in attracting and retaining his talent was that he emphasized on the 5-day work week, switching off the servers after 6 o'clock, so that people actually got the time. And he said that despite me being a small setup, I could attract a lot of people from very good backgrounds, because people valued money for sure, but they valued the time and the ability to take a step back, learn, move on, and re-energize to perform even more than money. So health, being with the family, the time to learn, develop, and do things that you like was also a very key aspect that he kept in mind. And during the pandemic, during COVID, it was very difficult because not clocking in your numbers, not meeting your targets, the pressure of turning on the server in the evenings or weekends to or month ends to log in your sales actually came every month. But he said that for 7 months they pulled through, and now they are making much more money than what they were making before the pandemic.
Interesting.
And most of these people have come through referrals, and he's not lost a single resource during the pandemic. So he stay put on the principles, but I know it's easier said than done. But somewhere we'll have to start thinking about this. That what's important for the folks that we employ or we work with. So that's one aspect that is critical, if I may say. I will share a few things. If I can say that you can look at the Center for Creative Leadership, website, where you get a lot of information in terms of how you can continuously keep on building capability. I was somehow anticipating this question, and that's why this is a small slide. In fact, this will be available on CCL even today. I'm not that old, but this is something that one of my mentors had passed on to me in HR, and I am happy to share this with you guys also. So there's no excuse to not grow capabilities within. There are always ways of doing it, and we can talk about that in detail. If you want to know more about how this can be integrated with work itself, I will be happy to share some examples. Anilya, the reason why you and I got associated was to learn while you work, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
I remember that.
One. Yeah, that's one. Second is, we are also learning while we work. We have started partnerships with learning institutes like IIMS or BITS Pilani. They are working in an integrated manner with us, where over 200 colleagues are learning and working and applying those learnings directly in their workspace. So I think it's possible, and it's just the way we communicate. It's just the way we create these opportunities for people. So that's one. Now there are two other dimensions. One was the reasons why leaders learn or become blocked towards learning. I mean, we may think that we are constantly learning, but there are habits, behaviors, and ways of working that we pick up. And I think somewhere some biases creep in that prevent us from learning. And I'm talking about specifically, say, mid to senior level managers or executives who are able to successfully deliver, climb up, but becomes difficult to sustain there. So how do we build that resilience or the competence in ourselves to continuously learn? So I did want to touch upon that part also, because a lot of things that we hear, there's so much information available, that there's no point talking about what's easily available. I can talk about the sources, I can talk about some personal experiences, and I can talk about some of the learnings that we've had when we tried to get change dissipate through the senior levels. And that is one area where I think it's very interesting to for us to actually talk about. and see how do we leverage learning and change for senior executives or mid to senior executives. So when we look at a child or through our childhood, I think there's a very high display of curiosity which starts withering down. Even if it is there, we still have layers and layers above that, which prevents us from asking a lot of questions. Kids are generally very curious, and if they are confused about something, they will throw a volley of questions. Why is this? Why is that? Why is the sky blue? I want to eat. I want to play with 3 yellow balls. This, that, whatever. I mean, when we take the kids out or whatever. But as we grow, we answer more rationally. We process it a lot more. So somewhere the curiosity gets buried, and the typical philosophy that organizations or progressive organizations have adopted is the 70-20-10, that you learn the maximum through your experiences, and even within the experiences you learn the maximum from your dissonant experiences, where you have had a very impactful experience which stays with you, and your subconscious builds some learnings from that. And then 20% from developmental relationships. It could be projects, anchoring, in a way experiential, but has a blend of taking the mentoring or the knowledge from someone, and you exercise secondary experiences, integrate that with your learning experience. And the last one is something like this, where you have a coursework, training, or a class, or a structured system. And there has been extensive research. I mean, if you look at this organization, which became really big in the past 5 years, was this Mind Gym. It's a British organization. It's one of the most effective training methodologies that companies have actually experienced. And it says that if you train for more than 90 minutes, your brain stops absorbing. So how do you capsule things with data, with right research, and make it so impactful in the 90 minutes that you get the essence. So there is work happening around the 10% as well, but the 70-20-10, which is a very, very commonly used terminology to assimilate learning and build capability, is something that is very key. However, if you look at people at the entry level, or people who are managing themselves, they're managing others, and the leader of leaders, or leading others. These are the 70-20-10 starts displaying itself very differently in the way people apply it to themselves. So when you're leading yourself and managing yourself, you look at learning and capability building differently, vis-a-vis when you have a team of people you're directly accountable for, but your work as well. And then when you're leading only leaders, so how do you change your gears? Because what was good till now may not be good for tomorrow. So it's very important to look at that. So dissonant experiences is something that we can actually talk about. And there has been research around how people are using their experiences to build. When you look at different outcomes, when you look at life-changing events, when you look at a lot of divergence, antagonism, or convergence, which has a huge impact on you. I mean, I'll take a small example. All of us would have watched Harry Potter. The impact that a Voldemort had, or a Dumbledore had on the protagonist, was equally profound from both sides. So it's very important that we look at, and we will have many such examples. So in our day-to-day lives, so successes, failures have a big impact in the way experiences teach us or stay with us. In terms of other learning, impediments in terms of learning, is also, of course, our cognitive biases and limits. So we need to be aware of that. There are ways of enhancing that, but we need to look at that. A large part of impediment that comes from a lot of our accumulated success. So I've seen a lot of leaders or managers who've been extremely successful in whatever they have done. The success itself prevents them from learning, right? So, and we will talk about that. I mean, there is a tendency to replicate what worked earlier. There is a tendency to avoid any failure. There is a tendency to explore and excessively adapt only what has been working for you. So that becomes a very difficult way of breaking the mold, and then coming into a mindset where you are able to explore, continuously look at your curiosity. So that was another thing. Then with successful people or with mid-level managers, people who've grown through the ranks, there's also a lot of excessive conviction. So there is I have seen I have worked. If you look at the culture study, and the way leaders behave across different cultures. So the map of the blue, orange, red, and the different combinations of that, you would see there are and there was a study which was associated with the culture study. I think it was done in 2002 by Keith DeVries. He 300 CEOs were studied, and they actually saw that across cultures, some behaviors were common, and a sense of superiority, a sense of uniqueness, a sense of exaggeration of one's capabilities or talents, self-referential, or I may call it self-centered. So I know I'm going towards the trust equation, so I'll come back. But the self-centeredness or self-referential thing keeps reiterating what was good will stay good, and the need for admiration, the need for attention, the need for a certain type of behavior or a response also prevents people from learning, specifically leaders. And then the last one, but the most important one, is the fear of vulnerability. The fear of being able to say that I don't know and I would like to learn is also something that becomes an impediment to our learning. So being unable to empathize, or avoiding our own anxieties or fears, or it makes you distant. It creates a social distance in a different way. Social distance is being used very differently in today's context, but it creates a social distance for the leader or the manager. And I would actually recommend, there is a TEDx talk by Brené Brown on the power of vulnerability. It's a beautiful TEDx. So if possible, please do watch it, and it will bring out that how vulnerability is important. And even if you look at Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, you will see that vulnerability is the first step. Being able to open up, being open-minded is the first step for learning and building trust. And effective teams who can have conflict without becoming personal, have trusting relationships, and then the teams come together to actually deliver and give profitable results. So that was a context that I was trying to explore. So I mean, it's important for us to see which one, whether it is the cognitive limits or biases which prevents us, whether it is the excessive conviction that we have on the ways that have worked, whether it is accumulated success that is preventing us, or the fear of vulnerability that is preventing us from learning. And all these are linked to experiences that we've had, and which is why they say 70% or a largest part of the learning or capability building happens through experiences. And then of course it's very important that each one of us has our own playbook to say, okay, what's the mindset that I would like to cultivate? How do I become more mindful? And what's the story or narrative that I create for myself, for my team, or whether it's an individual contributor or if I'm leading a team, how would I like to be leading my team? So that's the kind of I link it to the organizational context again and bring the 70-20-10. So assignments, work that you do, and this again is referencing to center of creative leadership. So
Yeah.
and leveraging through others or 10. Yes,
Kavita, time check, we have 12 already on the clock. So a little bit more in terms of could we move a little bit more in term on the slides so that we can have build up more conversation? Which I'm sure I'm getting a lot of questions as well, so we can pick up those
sure,
questions.
sure.
So rather than stopping the slide, we'll go ahead with your slides so that we can pick up your questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. So we touched upon it's very important to look at maybe actually I would do another small experience sharing that if you look at individual capability building now, whatever way you look at how have individuals grown, or how have organizations looked at individuals, and how can you leverage your own potential. There's a way of looking at it. So, for example, no matter which field or faculty you come from, but if you have worked largely for managing yourself, then of course there's a certain degree of competence that one builds. But if you start managing others, then you start leading others, and if you start leading leaders, and if you lead organizations. So the more you cover in terms of spectrum here, your capabilities advance, your experiences are deeper, richer, and you're able to look at a different dimension of questioning oneself from different perspectives. If you are managing only yourself, then of course you will stay in that frame of reference, and it will be difficult for you to for us to actually move. The second dimension is when we do a role, whether we do it for a small geography, we do it for a part of the, you can, depending on which part of the world you are, you could be a state, region, whatever. And if you look at it from a national or a country level kind of accountability, if you look at a regional or a multi-country accountability, if you look at a large geography that one applies the competence to, then of course your competence builds in a different way. This is something that actually Dave Ulrich shared with me. I have worked with him and also learned from him. And I'm very happy to share this way of thinking, because I think it has helped widen my own perspective of how one looks at careers. And then, of course, whatever function you are, if you are a master, or if you are deep into one sub-function, 2, 3, or multiple aspects of the function or the domain that you're in, what's your area of coverage in terms of knowing more than one? Is also something that enhances your capability. And then of course, if you are in one domain but you have a multi-sector or multi-industry context to apply your decision making and thinking process, it also adds a very different dimension for you to develop your competence. So it depends, different people cover different areas. So somebody's graph could be this here, and it could just be this. So either you're this, one could be this, and you would see that people, even though they have worked in lesser geographically diverse roles, but the mindset to apply to a larger context. I mean, you could be sitting anywhere doing a global role, but the ability to extrapolate your mindset and think differently could actually mean very different in terms of how your career grows. And that's why you would see that many times people who've had very similar learning opportunities actually end up creating different capabilities and competencies, because they apply it differently. So it a lot depends on how you. So what is the area that you would like to cover? What is the dimension that you would like to cover? Whether it is geographical, whether it is multifunctional, uh, whether it is in terms of application to self or that grows to others and lead, and it goes to the organizational level, or whether you stay to one sector or you stay to multiple sectors and enrich with, the more business cycles you see, the more application you see across sectors, your decision making gets more richer. So this was another aspect that I wanted to share with all of us. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm saying this is very nice in terms of how you presented it. In terms of, I was trying to reflect myself as well on this. So yeah, that's a beautiful way of presentation.
Yes, I personally liked it so much that I always talk about it. Then depending on how you want to envisage this, you look at how you would like to.
Got split. Screen has got split. I think some format changes happened. I think we are seeing the presenter view rather than the presentation view.
Is it? Okay, just a moment.
Yeah. You can just end this and end the slideshow. Just on the PPT and the slideshow. No, not on this. You can come back to it. End the slideshow in this so that.
Just tell me
Yeah,
if you're
good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is something that I look at drawing a T chart for yourself, and see what are the areas that you would like to that you would all of us have some aspirations or some perspective in terms of learning. So what is it that we would like to have? And I remember one of my global HR heads in my previous organization. He actually told me that write your CV every year, and if you're not able to see a difference from the last year to this year in terms of what you've accumulated, learned, applied, then maybe you're not in the right place. And there are people who spend years and years and years in the organization without really seeing a difference or a change. And actually, the more we keep on repeating something, of course, it becomes more ingrained as a behavior. But doing it for a much more longer time also prevents us from learning newer things, or makes us a little more rigid. There are different theories, and of course people apply differently, but a large hypothesis has worked in that direction. So yes, it's also very important, when we say talent for what, and development for what. So asking that what question is very, very important. So in terms of whether we talk about the personal development, or if we talk about what we have actually looked at in the organizational context. This person has talent, this person has potential, but potential for what? Talent for what? So that what is a very, very important question that leaders need to answer, so that you're able to connect it to the business critical roles and look at that. So having those key questions, having the understanding that how does Mr. X or Miss X actually amalgamate experiences, and then look at personal learning, and we look at our personal learning. We all have heard about the Johari window. So I did want to bring that in, the Johari window, but it in the Johari window, of course, I wanted to definitely just talk about one part, which is your openness, or one's openness. I think that will be a key in terms of how we look at capability building of ourselves, of the team, and of the organization. I think I did cover this earlier. So I spoke a lot about it, but I had put a few things in terms of learning disabilities. So I will share. But what I also, if you look at Peter Block's book in terms of the empowered manager, every person has a defensive side and a learning side. And each one of us has this learning side or a defensive side. So it's just the choice we make in terms of which side we want to operate in. Yeah, so that was, I had put a few tips. The 70-20 principle, 10 principle, I do really believe in it. Real-time feedback, more transparency with yourself and with the team, and taking feedback, because how it's perceived is very, very important in terms of how it's working for us. And
Right.
and like Dan Millman says, the secret of change is to focus all our energy not on fighting the old, but to build the new.
Building. That is true, sir. I would say that's an amazing in terms of the presentation. Talked so much on so many areas. In fact, one which really touches me in terms of when you talk about openness, and I'll share a smart, though it's not my show, it's your show. My father he also comes from HR, so my brother is into HR, so it's more like, why am I into sales and marketing? So it was more, just to be a rebel at home from that perspective. But my father was a highly successful organizational HR head, is a national award in human resource development, and so on and so forth. And I come from, he's a big man in the industry and things like that. So I'm a son of a big man and things like that. First and foremost, he talked about sales and marketing, is that all that paraphernalias of, being a son of a highly successful executive was all taken back from me. I started, he said that if you really want to understand sales and marketing, you must understand failure first.
Yes.
I was sent across to do door-to-door activities. He said that, that ego of yours, you are not what you are. You are trying to pretend what your father is, which is not. You must learn the failures first, the failure of rejection, the doors getting closed, coming back with stinky shirts, and that rejection, the failures that I've not been able to convert sales, and that taught a lot of. You talked about openness, and that's where the real time, the personal experience. You talked about 70-20-10. The experience of these failures really accumulates in terms of, yes, how grounded I want to be. And I think you really touched upon many topics which are very close to my heart in terms of, specifically that graphic you talked on, multi-sector, multi-self, multifunction, multi-region. I would say these are all, I think, an attribute an individual need to have to be not only specialized skills are definitely recognized. I think there are a little bit of element. I think you as an HR head would also look at somebody with some additional multi-skills in various sectors, regions, in order to for that next line of leadership to really grow. And I think that's something that you. Any thoughts on next? How do you build the next line of leadership? If you could give me your thoughts, would be brilliant.
Yeah. So in terms of, I don't have all the answers, Anindya. I'm just trying to see what has worked, and sometimes also understanding what has not worked. So each sector will, like I think somebody asked that question. Each sector has a speed, and the velocity of the business you are in is a big factor in terms of how you're able to develop talent. And I think that also depends. It also makes you wonder or come to the conclusion that you need to build it, or you need to borrow it, or you need to look at any other talent strategy or capability strategy. There are organizations that realize that the successful ones that I've seen, They have operated with a lot of flexibility and agility towards all the aspects, and being rigid in terms of, no, we will look at only homegrown talent. I can share the example of Procter and Gamble. I think for long they used to say that we will only build from within, and we will not hire leaders beyond a certain level. But a few years back, they did realize, and they started recruiting at mid and senior levels as well. So each organization will have to look at, there are buckets today in my responsibility, where I know I can't borrow, I can't buy from the market, I can't borrow from the other group companies. I will have no choice but to build it, and I will need, I have a dependence on certain external factors to be able to build that skill. So how long will it take? What is your gestation period? And if you are vulnerable, then you need to ring fence the ones that are there with those skills. So it will depend on, what's your context, what is the problem we are trying to understand or solve. So there again, I would say it is very, very important to link the business strategy to the capabilities we need. Sorry for my handwriting on this. And hence the talent we build within. So these three have to be so closely linked in terms of what we do in our business, that it becomes very important.
It goes back to your first opening comment itself, in terms of business need, passion, and strength. How that particular thing that comes up. Anybody has any questions? Please feel free to post it in the chat box. Question answer box. We have kept that open. I have one more question, Kavita, in terms of when we look at today's modern context in terms of capability. I have one individual asking me in terms of data. Then how do you think data is relevant? So let me just read out the question here. Is it necessary nowadays for all to learn data science? Does it become important to learn or develop that competency, even if one is working with automotive industry? So you have a manufacturing person who's talking about it, and what do you suggest? What do you comment?
I would say, because see, all of us, whether we like it or not, we don't like tentativeness in terms of how we see things. We would like a certain level of, or a degree of assurance, or a degree of certainty in the way we look at. And that, it's a very natural tendency. All of us believe when we talk with data, we're able to correlate more. We are able to look at the outcomes with a more focused approach. So, yes, we all can survive without a mobile phone, but does it make our life easier, or does it make us operate better? I think it's just, there are things we can do without, but having it makes it much more reliable, much more consistent, or it's like, the ship left the shore, without a compass. So it will reach somewhere. It will get somewhere. But if you have a plan, then you know where will you get. So it's more the data will provide a direction. The data will force you to think, analyze the results, and work differently. So I think data, like technology, is a big enabler to making right decisions, or validating your decisions, or validating the outcomes. So that's one way of looking at it. How does one look at it in different sectors, including automobile, or even mining for that matter? If I have a face in the mine to drill, and if I put the explosives and drill, but if I'm more sure with data that, or with automation or mechanization, that if I drill this section, the concentration of the ore will be higher, or in automotive, your Six Sigma levels will be achieved. Then if you have Zero Sigma, or if you are working in an assembly line, you could have more safe operations, you could have more consistent, persistent, and better results. And I think it is a great enabler than the manual one, or if I got the question right.
remind me of Edward Deming's famous quote, "In God we trust, rest of you please bring
The
data."
rest, for everything else you get data. Yes.
The others must bring data. So that's the Edward
There
Deming.
was one, yeah, there was one question that came actually, which said that culture, relationships, trust, um, uh, you know, um, is it the responsibility of HR? Absolutely not. Every manager is a people's manager first, then delivers results. So never, never. In fact, leaner HR teams is a model that works a lot because by default the accountability comes on the manager. He or she becomes the window to the organization and then deals with things. And hence there was a time where the employee to HR ratio was questioned, and they said if you have too many of them, they'll keep solving your problem and creating work for themselves. Have a leaner team, and then the manager will be forced to look at the people issues directly. They will make more decisions. Uh, uh, how we approach business excellence.
Please go ahead if you can read them.
Yeah, I can read some of them. I can't read all the questions because I think some have just moved. What is the mantra to make good people managers as they move from being an individual contributor, since not everybody is blessed with capability to lead a team? I think self-awareness is the biggest. Taking feedback will make you want to be different. If you take feedback, it will bring in self-awareness. You will want to be different, and taking the feedback with an open mind is the first starting step of change. So if all of us have had those good days, bad days as managers, one thing that has really helped is I can tell you is my experiences being honest about I'm human. I tell my team that I am not in the best of my frame of mind. So today we will talk only about these things. So I think being more open, being more open to show your vulnerabilities because you are also human is a way that has worked with me, and being very clear that this is what we want to accomplish. Either you convince me or I convince you, and we move. One other thing, in today's culture, if we read about Daniel Coleman, he talks about triangulation. In organizations across the world, this happens. People who we see a lot of people who you see triangulation. Just a moment. I think I need to select the pen. Yeah. If you say that if there are two people in a team or in a working relationship, if they talk directly, it really helps. But if there is a third person, and the messaging between two people goes through the third person, this triangulation, it spoils and kills relationship, kills trust. It happens at home, it happens at work. So one of the things that we went through a resolution to practice is that if I have a view about someone, then it has to go straight to the person, and the person will straight give it to me. If it comes through a filter, then it will always have a color, different color. So, and actually, one of my previous CEOs, he stood in front of 1,000 people and shared this example. It's a hypothetical example, but you'll be able to relate with it. At home, if my sister comes with her kids and my mother is living with me, and my mother says, your sister said that your kids are not well behaved, they need to be taught differently. And then I will think, okay, if my sister thought so, why didn't she tell me directly? So killing this, it's a very small example, but this happens at work, this happens at home. It's very important to keep the communication transparent. So that has helped, and I think seeking feedback, keeping it transparent, are things that have helped in individual contributors becoming great managers. I can recommend a lot of books, but if you were to ask me one, then there is a book that I highly recommend. It's not written by one person; it's written by an institute, the Arbinger Institute. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. Don't go on the name. The content is super rich. It's not a big book, but it's a fantastic read, and you will read it again and again. I can tell you. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception by Arbinger Institute. They also wrote the anatomy piece after that, but I really like the first one. How does organization build better accountability across levels in the organization? I personally feel that what gets measured gets done. So it's very important to have clear, specific accountabilities defined to people, and KPI setting objectives is one side of the job, which is, if done well, is well begun. But if you don't hold the people for the results that they are delivering, whether good or bad, and do not reward, if you treat the donkeys and horses the same way, the horses will stop running.
Correct.
So building accountability through very structured deliverables, and then performance managing them according to that is something that has worked in many organizations, and linking it to the larger objective. How to keep motivation of learning when we come to retirement age? Usually I think it's actually a better time to learn, because although one of the sessions that I was doing, I was the youngest participant, and when we started the 4-day workshop, I saw an apprehension that is it not too early for you to learn this? So I actually said that you will take time to unlearn what you have built. I will be able to learn quicker. So it's very important to unlearn and learn, and I don't think there's any age to that. So you have more time if you are retired or superannuated. So I would actually envy that phase of yours. How about hierarchical way of working culture? Yes, great organizations, and if you read, some of the good books written by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about not having hierarchy, bureaucracy, and the speed of decision making, the speed of information flow is superb if you don't have bureaucracy or hierarchy, because there's no fear of filtering information, and there's no like one way of moving up or down in terms of information. So that's my personal belief, and if you see some good organizations that actually and a lot of people say that some of these functions can never, yeah, Harmeet, a lot of people say in these functions you can't build specific goals, but till date I have not come across even one role where accountability cannot be defined sharply, or the KPI cannot be measurable, and it will be subjective. So we can, I mean, I had a colleague who was working in Saudi Aramco, and she said, no, HR is seen like that. We are not seen as a function that brings business value, business impact. But I feel the otherwise, and we actually worked together, and we created a very, very transparent way of objectively measuring what she and her team were doing. And that also brings a lot more confidence, because I think that's the line which separates confidence and overconfidence. When you know what you're delivering, you'll be confident about it, and then if you stay humble and exercise humility, then you'll be able to win people and take them along.
So with that, Kavita, we have almost come to the end. It's already 12:30, so I can't thank you enough. And really, the point that you came all the way to the office to have this, so much appreciated of your time. Just to recap, you talked about business need, passion, strength, look at where you lie. Talked about in terms of bringing in value, focus on that rather than looking at potential. Because of course, one should look at that as well. We also talked about a few things which really touch me in our deeper in terms of being open. I think that's the key thing, message, be grounded. And other items talked about in the development of our skills around multi-sectors, regions, functions, And obviously, last but not the least, I would like to add, continue to write your CV. I think that's a very valuable point, which I still remember my dad said that if you are not writing your CV every day, you won't get to know, right? In fact, you said every year, rather than every year, you said every month you should jot down what you've done, whether you're progressing or not. So that's really your own personal yardstick. So, Kavita, I really appreciate. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful. Thank you for taking your time out from your family on a Sunday. Appreciate it deeply. With that, anything else? Any last comment, Kavita, from your end?
No, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity and filling my Sunday with a lot of energy. I really enjoyed the conversation. Although I'm a very conversational kind of a person, so I would have loved for people to talk, but I know it's not possible to run it well that way. But
Right.
happy to come here and if there's
Thank you so much.
anything
I
that
would
I can
say
do.
that this is not complete. I would say this is not complete. Next year, coming year, we will definitely have you one more back again with a different set of topic and excitement. It has been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Kavita. But this, we'll get you back again as a my promise next year for sure, because I think there is so much to learn from you, so much experience that you have. I think I think everybody would enjoy that. Thank you so much, Kavita.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. With that note, I will just come back to the last point in terms of what we plan to do for the month of quality. Just to share with you that this entire month, ASU would be celebrating the month of as quality. This time around, our theme is reimagining quality. We are going through a difficult time in terms of it's a black swan moment for the entire industry. And the idea is that what have you done differently? Please share with us how we can learn from each other. Kavita also mentioned about being open. So ASQ have come up with where we are going to share a lot of things around reimagining quality. Whereas we would also like to hear from you what does reimagining quality in the current context and as well as in future context, how do you relate with it? So a lot more activities been planned out. We'll have plenty of quality contests, something which has just got launched today in terms of send us a small little capsule in terms of voice of quality contest. Talk about your quality experience in these few days. It should not be more than 2 minutes. We'll be hosting a virtual every week. We'll have one session or a guest lecture, and there will be contest in terms of scopes. There will be trivia on our website. We have created a dedicated. Please log on to asp.org.in, and then we have created a dedicated and / quality month, and you can download a lot of quality trivias. You can download images which you can make it as a background or to celebrate the month of posters and things like that. So to create the noise within the organization, there will be panel discussion on relevance of Six Sigma in today's context. There will be a panel discussion on Quality 4.0. Then there will be an LMC activities, local member community activities, which is a conference, the 10th in the series from 27th, 28th. And to not miss out the Saturday 28th, 6 p.m. on with conversation with Dr. Ronald Snee, where we were talking about data. We talked about, there was a question about around data itself, but we'll be talking about use of data and improving quality performance in uncertain times. Please log on to our website. There will be a lot of activities, a lot of actions. Use the hashtag reimagining quality or ASQ India Quality Month, which is IQU. We are using hashtag ASQ IQU. Please share. Please let us know if you're doing something which we can be part of. You want us to arrange a guest lecture. We can always look at an industry speaker talking about quality and the practices they are doing. So happy to be of that to exchange ideas and information. With that, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Kavita, once again, really appreciate your time. You have a lovely Sunday. Everybody, please enjoy. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kavita.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.